what were you like as a child, and how did this shape you to be a man you are today?
By the time I was in first grade, I was attempting to read, and I found out I had dyslexia and reading and speaking problems. I went from normal reading to remedial reading to the dunce class. The teacher eventually had my parents come to the school and said that I'm afraid your son's not going to be able to read or write or communicate effectively, probably not amount to much and go very far.
What was your moment in your life when everything changed?
Well, the night I met Paul Bragg, the speaker that I listened to, he said that we have a body, we have a mind, and we have a soul. And the body must be directed by the mind, and the mind must be guided by the soul to maximize our potential.
How can somebody truly discover their highest values?
When I was 23, I said, why do some people walk their talk and some people live their life? Why do some people do what they say and others don't?
What is the most misunderstood part of human behavior, in your opinion?
Most people compare themselves to other people and put people on pedestals or pits.
Living according to your values doesn't make you selfish. It makes you who you truly are and make your life more pleasant in the way that you can really live with a joy.
Well, I would say live according to your values because you have a hierarchy of values, living according to the highest value.
If we are giving advices to certain people, does this mean that we are trying to put them to walk our shoes in the way to reach our values? Can someone really balance all areas of life? Or is this just a myth and we still balance our highest values and our highest priorities? And I want to ask you, do you believe that everybody has a calling or purpose, something we create? Guys, I need to say something. We're building something really special here. The level of guests, the conversations, the depth we are going in week by week, it's becoming better and better, more and more valuable. But there is one thing which doesn't make any sense. Almost 90% of you who keep watching the episodes, who keep coming back week by week, are not subscribed yet. Which means one thing, you're not fully part of that journey. I get it. It's one click. It feels small. But for us, and myself personally, means everything. It tells the algorithm that we matter, it helps us reach bigger guests and create better and better podcast episodes, which at the end of the day are equally for myself like for yourself. They bring the value. So if there was ever a moment to support us, I please you to do it right now. Check if you're subscribed, and if you're not, it's completely free. It doesn't mean to you that much like it means to us. Just click the subscribe button, and by that way, you will help us grow bigger and bigger. And what I can promise you is that me and my team will continue making improves and very soon move ourselves to the real studio where we will record even more powerful episodes with same and new guests. Check, are you subscribed? And subscribe right now. Thank you. Dr. John, thank you so much for joining this podcast episode. For me, it's such a big pleasure to have you today here.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. I was looking forward to it.
Yeah, the first time ever I have heard from you, it was on another podcast where you have been speaking a lot about behavioral science and all these stuffs, how aligned with the people. And I thought to myself, one day, maybe I can invite you on my podcast to speak about that. So today we are here. As I like to start from the very beginning, and as you have been speaking many times publicly of your beginning, I want you to tell us a little bit about what were you like as a child, and how did this shape you to be a man you are today?
I was born in 1954, Houston, Texas. At about a year and a half old, a little over a year old, I had to go to a speech pathologist because I wasn't pronouncing sounds properly. I also had an inverted right arm and leg. It was rotated inward and had to wear a brace on my arm and leg. By the time I was in first grade, I was attempting to read, and I found out I had dyslexia and reading and speaking problems. I went from normal reading to remedial reading to the dunce class. The teacher eventually had my parents come to the school and said that I'm afraid your son's not going to be able to read or write or communicate effectively, probably not amount to much and go very far. I made it through school, in elementary school, by asking smart people questions. Mm-hmm. If I listened to what they said, some of it would stick. But if I tried to, read, it just wasn't working. I left school when I was 13 and became a street kid.
Wow.
And when I was 17, just about 18, I nearly died. And in the recovery of that, I went to a particular class by Paul C. Bragg that one man in one hour, one night, inspired me to believe that I could overcome my learning problems and someday become intelligent. I
This
was
is
pretty
very
good on a surfboard. I was pretty good on a surfboard, but I wasn't read. I really didn't read till I was 18. When he inspired me to do that, that inspired me to want to become intelligent. And in that age, 17, 18, when you think of somebody who's intelligent, you think, sure. So I wanted to overcome my learning, my speaking problems. I wanted to be able to someday become intelligent and be able to read and write and communicate. So 52 and a half years later, here I am.
awesome.
I was told I would never read, and I've been blessed now, once I learned, to read about 31,000 books. They said I would never write. Well, I've written a lot of books, textbooks, manuscripts, about 300. They said I would never communicate. I've spoken in 161 countries now. They said I would never amount to anything. I'm about 50 times financial independent. Anyway, they said I would never go very far in life. I've traveled about 21 million miles, either on my ship and sailing or on flights. So the very thing that you're told you're not able to do could be, might be, the very thing you get to do in life. So I'm very grateful that I had a first grade teacher tell me that, because that became a void that determined my values. And what I love doing today is exactly what I was told I would never be able to do.
Whenever you come to the salesperson would tell you, I know how to help you, we are having perfect solution for you. But in fact, you have a great product, you have a great offer, you know that you can help so many people, but you're still inconsistent. Why it's like that? Because you misunderstand two basic principles. And let me tell you something, it's not economy, it's not war, it's not current president or political situation, none of that. Because simply you and money were always on the same planet, planet Earth. You never left the planet, and most likely money never did it, right? The only two ways are the reason why it's like that. Number one thing which can be the reason is that you don't know the right way of presenting your offer. Number two can be that you don't know the proper way to whom to present it, which boils down to you don't know to whom to sell, or you don't know the right way to speak to the people to whom to sell. I have been scaling in the past 10 years multiple of my own companies and companies of my clients from $0 to $200,000 in sales, being in China, selling physical, perishable items like food and beverages, and without speaking Chinese, without writing Chinese, and without knowing how to sell to Chinese people. But I knew one core principle, and this is that psychology of people never change. So I knew to whom to sell, and I knew exact way how to present my offer to them. I was scaling up my digital businesses to hundred thousands of dollars, again understanding two core principles: to whom to sell, so who can benefit from my offer, and the way, when, and how to present my offer. And there is no magic and there is no secret behind that. It's really easy to understand it. But in order to this video be very short, I put all of this together in the school community, which is completely for free. You can join it right now, clicking on the link below in the description box, and you can discover these two principles. It will take you a couple of days to figure it out yourself and to practice it, and then your sales will become consistent. Until then, see you in the school community. Bye for now.
Thank you for sharing that. It's the first time that I hear your story in such a details. And one of the reasons I've wanted to make this podcast episode happen is that I have been told that I cannot live the life I'm living today. And in the moment when this happened to me was around 15, 16 years, when I said to my father that I don't want to live in our home country where people work for a couple of $100 a month and barely find a job. And that even though I'm going to be electronical engineer, it's not something what truly aligned with me, even though I'm very good in that, and I was very good in that. And when I set my dream that I would like to set myself free from suit and pajama lifestyle, and to live somewhere where I like to live, on the ocean, next to the sea, my father was very irritated by him not being able to provide me such a lifestyle. And he tried to shut me down by telling me, listen up, if you want to live that lifestyle, you need that big pail of money, showing me with hands how this should be big in cash. And he continued like, I don't have that. We don't have that. We are normal people. So forget about this, stop dreaming and do your stuff. And I changed it. Years after, I changed everything. Today, I'm living on the tropical island with my wife and our 9-year-old boy. I'm doing the job which I truly like, and I'm completely into the entrepreneurial lifestyle. So this deeply resonates with me. And this was my moment of pivoting the stuffs, realizing, okay, you don't believe in me, but let me see what I can do about that. What was your moment in your life when everything changed?
Well, the night I met Paul Bragg, the speaker that I listened to, he said that we have a body, we have a mind, and we have a soul. And the body must be directed by the mind, and the mind must be guided by the soul to maximize our potential. Now, what he was describing the soul, like a theological term of soul, is really our authentic self. And he said that what you think about, what you visualize, what you affirm, what you feel, what you write out, what you act upon becomes your reality, becomes your destiny. And to set goals for yourself, your family, your community, your city, your state, your nation, your world, and beyond to 100, 120 years. Well, nobody really talked to me like that. Most people didn't talk about how you're capable of achieving. And so for some reason, the student was ready and the teacher appeared. And I was at the right place at the right time to meet the right person to catalyze a belief that maybe I could, if I worked at it and really focused on it, maybe I could someday become intelligent and learn how to speak properly and read. And I wanted to travel the world. I didn't want to be constrained because when I was in braces as a child, I didn't like the constraint. I wanted to be able to be free. And that's probably why I traveled so much, because it didn't put a constraint on me. So here I am. And the voids in our life can become our values, and the challenges can become our opportunities. I never got to thank the first grade teacher. She passed away before I ever got to thank her. But I would thank her because she said exactly what I needed to give me the void to eventually have the value and determination to do it. Now, I had a challenge when I went back to school. I had to take a GED because being dropped out of school at 13, 14, you need to come back and take a GED to be able to go into college or to finish other education. And for some miraculous reason, I guessed and passed. I just guessed. I couldn't even read half the questions. I just closed my eyes and put in a dot and hoped it would come through. I figured I got nothing to lose by taking the test. But I somehow passed, and I had me a high school degree. And then I tried to go on to college, and the first two classes I took was English and history. And the teacher in history was talking pretty fast, and I didn't know how to take notes, and I was not proficient at writing. And then when I took my first test, I got a 27, and I needed a 72 to pass, and I got a 27. And when I saw the grades, I was really humiliated and really embarrassed. And I thought, well, I guess I'll never be able to read or write or communicate, and the round thing never go very far. I kept reciting the first grade teacher's idea. And this is a real setback because I thought I was moving towards this idea of being intelligent someday, and all of a sudden I got a 27. And I remember driving home crying and then coming into the living room and going around in a sunken living room. I curled up in a fetal position under this Bible stand. My mom had this beautiful stand. And I just was sulking and thinking that maybe I don't have what it takes. And my mom came home and saw me there crying, and she said, "Son, what happened? What's wrong?" She hadn't seen me cry since I was a kid because I left home. And I said, "Mom, I blew the test. I needed a 72 to pass, and I got a 27. I even got the letters backward. I'm dyslexic." And she said something that only a mother could say. She said, "Son," she put her hand on my shoulder, and she said, "Son, whether you be a great teacher and philosopher and travel the world, or you go back and ride big waves in Hawaii like you did," because I was living in Hawaii when I nearly died, "or you return to the streets and panhandle," which I also did as a teenager in the 60s. She says, "I just want to let you know your father and I are going to love you no matter what you do." And when she said that, it was kind of an unconditional loving moment. And when she did that, my hand went into a fist. And I looked up and I saw the vision the night I met Paul Bragg of me standing and speaking in front of people. And I said to myself, I'm going to master this thing called reading, studying, and learning. I'm a master of this teaching, healing, and philosophy. And I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to travel whatever distance. I'm going to pay whatever price to give my service of love across the planet. I'm not going to let any human being on the face of the earth stop me, not even myself. And I got up and I hugged my mom and I went into my room and I got a dictionary out, a Funk and Wagnall's dictionary. And I started memorizing 30 words a day. And I would write the words out 20 times, 30 words 20 times. I would put them into a sentence. I would pronounce them properly. And I would do it 20 times, 20 times, 20 times. And then at the end of the day, my mom would test me on 30 words. And I grew my vocabulary I recited everything 20 times. I grew my vocabulary 30 words a day. 2 years later, I had 20,000 words.
That's a big progress.
20,000 words. And I went from the bottom of the class to the top of the class. And then I stayed there and I learned how to read and I never stopped reading to this day. There's not a day that goes by that I'm not reading and researching. So I try to feed my mind every day. And I was told that if I want to make a difference in the world, I need an astronomical vision. So it's the size of your vision will determine the outcome in life. So I basically wanted to reach the world. I got a global map. I put it on my wall. And I said, I want to go to every country on the face of the earth. I've been to 161 countries speaking now, and I'm still working on it.
That's awesome. That's really unbelievable parts of the story. And you're saying something what I truly agree. And that's probably one of the sentences I adore from Bob Proctor. And this is that if you can imagine it, if you see it in your head, you can have it in your hand. This is such a true thing and such a well aligned with your story and with your destiny. I want to ask you, I found out researching the stuffs around what you're doing and your methodology that you're very often speaking about values dictate our destiny. How can somebody truly discover their highest values?
Well, when I was 23, I asked myself, why do some people walk their talk and some people limp their life? Why do some people do what they say and others don't? I want to know what drives people. And that led me in the research to human values and the study of axiology, which is a study of value and worth, self-worth and value. And there was a statement by the Scottish philosopher David Hume about is versus ought. What are our values? What are they? Or what do they ought to be? And most people are trying to fit in and fit into what it ought to be and having an internal conflict instead of what it actually is. And I'm interested in what they actually are in a human being. So all of the different value determination processes that I found in the literature, I wasn't satisfied with because it seemed like it was an imposition, an imperative from some outer authority about how it should be instead of how it actually. And people live with a unique set of values, a unique hierarchy of values. And so I wanted to develop a tool to help people discern that. And so I found out that there were 13 basic criteria that really help a person identify what they value most. Because your life demonstrates your values. Your perception, decisions, and actions are based on it. So how do you fill your space? You have what is called an intimate space, a personal space, a social space, and a public space. And the more things are close to you, the more valuable they are. And the more they're not valuable, you discard them, get away from you. So if you look at what you feel your most intimate and personal space with most, and where you spend the most time, and look at that space and what's there, and what do you engage in with your sensory and motor function, it tells you what you value most. Now, in my case, I'm in front of my computer most of the day. I mean, most every day or throughout the day, I'm on the computer. So if I look at what is the dominant use of it, it's teaching. And what's the second most dominant use? It's researching and writing. So my computer is extremely valuable for my life. and it stays with me, and it's usually within 18 inches of me, like right now, to do what I do. Then I looked at my iPhone. I keep my iPhone, and I look at what do I keep with me at all times, and that's my iPhone. Well, what's the dominant use of my iPhone? Well, researching. I really don't talk to people a lot on the iPhone, as much as people might imagine. I really just look stuff up. I like to be able to look up when I'm standing in line or wherever I am. I like to do it. And the third thing is I usually have books around me because I'm constantly reading, and I do it every day. And so if I look at what fills my most intimate space, it's my computer, my iPhone, and books. Then I look at the second value determinant. First one is how do you most fill up your most intimate space? The second one is time. You find time, make time, and spend time on things that are really valuable, but you run out of time for things that aren't. If somebody asks you, hey, would you like to do this? And it's not really valuable, just no, I'm too busy. But if it's something really high in your values, you'll make it, arrange things to get to it. So you look at what you spend your time on most. Now, if I look carefully, honestly, all the hours in a day, if I'm looking down on me, I'm teaching most every day. Literally, I do 300 plus speeches a year. I'm teaching most days, more than most people. So I look at what my life demonstrates. I fill my space with what I spend my time on. It's teaching. And then researching and writing is second most time. And third is traveling for me. So then the third value determinant is energy. Our reticular activating system and our thalamus and filters information. Whenever we're doing something that's high in our value, our energy goes up. Whenever we do something low in our value, our energy goes down.
Yeah.
So what is it that energizes you most, and what is it you always have energy for? And if I look again, my point's to teaching again. I can teach all day long. And people go, where do you get all the energy to do that? And I go, well, I just love doing it. So it doesn't even feel like there's no break on when you're doing what you love. When you're doing what's high in priority, there's no resistance. The fourth one is money. You make money, find money, and spend money on things that are valuable. If it's not important to you, you don't want to spend money on it. So look at where your money goes. Most of my money goes back into my educational institute and investing. I'm a believer. I wanted to be financially independent. At age 27, I started working on it, and that happened. But I look at what my life demonstrates. Your money goes and flows into what you value most. If you have a high value on cooking and eating, well, you spend a lot of money on food. If you have a high value on traveling, you spend money on travel. If you have a high value on learning, you spend on learning. Where does your money go? The hierarchy of your values dictates your financial destiny. So space, time, energy, and money are the first four of the 13. The next one is where are you most ordered and organized? Because things that are high in your value bring order to it and structure to it. You activate, whenever you're doing something high in your value, the blood glucose and oxygen activates the medial prefrontal cortex and activates the executive center, where you strategize and you organize and you become integrated. So look at where you're most ordered. Well, all of my teaching information is all organized. I know exactly where it is. I know how to pull it up and add to it. The second thing, in my case, is my research. It's very organized, and of course, my investments in travel. Those are the ones that keep showing up on mine. And the next one is where are you most disciplined, reliable, and focused? What is it you do that nobody has to remind you to do that you spontaneously do? Whenever we're doing something high in our values, we activate spontaneous action potentials in the medial prefrontal cortex, which causes an intensive action. Without having to make a decision from external stimuli, you just act. You spontaneously act, like a boy that loves his video games. I spontaneously do my speaking. I'll take advantage of any opportunity to do teaching. So look at where you are spontaneously acting and disciplined and reliable. People who know me know, they don't ask me, what are you up to? They say, where are you teaching today?
Yeah.
What are you researching? Where are you traveling today? How's your investment? They don't ask, what's your favorite recipe? They don't waste their time, people that know me, because they know I don't cook. I haven't cooked since I was 24. I haven't even driven a car in 35 years. Anything that's low on my values, I delegate to other people that have it high on theirs. So they get to do what they love, and I get to do what I love. The next one, number 7, is what are you thinking about how you would love your life to be that shows evidence of coming true? Number 7 is what are you visualizing about how you would love your life to be that shows of coming true? Number 8, or number 9, pardon me, what are you internally dialoguing with yourself about how you want your life that shows evidence coming true? Because your thinking is your frontal cortex predominantly, although the whole brain is involved. Your visual is your occipital, even though there's secondary associations. And your speaking, internal dialogue, is your temporal. And I'm looking for a gestalt where all the brain is focusing on something that's gestalt. So I look at what do you think about, visualize, and internally dialogue with about how you want your life that shows evidence coming true. If there's no evidence, it's a fantasy. If you don't want it, it's just a nightmare. I just want to know what you think about, visualize, and internally dialogue with about how you want your life that shows evidence coming true. The next one is, what exactly do you keep bringing conversations to and want to talk about when you're in social settings most? You know, when people come up to you and they have young children, they go, "How are your children?" If they're a sports fan, they go, "How's your favorite team?" Or "How's your golf going?" If they're an investor, they go, "How's investments going?" If they're a business person, how's your business doing? If your relationship, they love relationships and family, they'll go, how's your marriage? People want to engage in things that convert and converse about things that are high in their value. So I look at, what do you want to converse about? And what do you get engaged when we could get to converse about it? The next one is, what inspires you and brings tears of gamma synchronicities in the brain and eureka moments where you get an aha? What is the common threads to the things that inspire you most? The next one is, what is it that you have that you consistently and persistently set as goals that are coming true? The most consistent, persistent goals you've been pursuing that are coming true, that have evidence of coming true. And the last one is, what do you spontaneously want to read about, study about, learn about, and watch on YouTube about? Because there's a pattern. If you look and answer 3 answers for each of those 13 questions, 39 answers in all, and answer them honestly. Imagine a drone looking over you and hovering over, and so you can't lie to yourself, because you're not there to write down what you think it ought to be, should be, wish it would be, hope it would be, what it used to be. What does your life demonstrate? Your life demonstrates your values, and it speaks louder than your words. If you do that, it'll give you a really good indication of what is really, according to your values, priority. And then you can literally set up a priority. I have this on my website, drdemartini.com, for free. Millions of people have used it, and it's for free for people to take 30 minutes of time to go through these questions and ask as honestly as they can and answer them. I'm certain it can be eye-opening and revealing. Because if you're not living your day by high-priority actions, your day will fill up with low-priority distractions. And when you live by highest priorities, you grow in self-worth. When you live by lower priorities, you lower self-worth. So if you want to measure potential, it's important to find out what your values are, the highest values.
This is absolutely brilliant breakdown of values, and I never heard it before now. This was the first time I could hear it, and you that well explained it, that I'll definitely, after that episode, hop in on your website and go through the entire blueprint. And yeah, for all of you who are watching us or listening us in this moment and question where you can find it, the link will be in the description of this episode. Speaking about values, I would like to ask you, what is the most misunderstood part of human behavior, in your opinion, knowing that you have worked with millions of people until now?
Most people compare themselves to other people and put people on pedestals or pits.
Absolutely.
And by the law of contrast, when they exaggerate somebody and look up to them, they minimize themselves, which is inauthentic. And if they look down on them, they tend to exaggerate themselves, which is inauthentic. So anytime we compare ourselves to others, instead of compare our daily actions to our own highest values, we automatically lessen our potential to achieve, because we're trying to be second at being somebody else instead of first at being us. Or we're trying to get other people to live in our values, which is futile. Anytime we try to live in other people's values or try to get others to live in our values, we have futility. Just think about the time you met somebody that you were infatuated with, some beautiful girl or something that you met, and at first you started to sacrifice what was important the first few weeks you were with her, trying to live in her values, trying to please her, and fearing the loss of her. That's because you had her on a pedestal. and you minimized yourself to her, and then you end up sacrificing what was normally important to you for trying to live in their values. But within weeks, you started to fade, and you found it futile, and you couldn't live up to it, and you wanted your life back. The same time, if you meet somebody you look down on and resent, you're going to try to project your values onto them and get them to be more like you. You want them to do it. And anybody who's been married knows if you try to get your spouse to live in your values, you'll be castrated or stabbed probably eventually. So
Yeah,
it doesn't work. So trying to live
absolutely.
in other people's values or trying to get others to live in your values is futile and a waste of time. And this is the most common thing in personal development and human behavior that undermines great achievement. You're not here to compare yourself to others or put people in pedestal pitch. You're here to have reflective awareness and see that whatever you admire in them, you already have. You just haven't honored the form it's in. And give yourself permission to prioritize your life and live authentically. How are you going to make a difference if you're trying to fit in? You can only make a difference when you stand out.
Yeah, that's very powerful one. But you see, you're raising now another question myself, which I want to ask you: is this meaning that living according to your values doesn't make you selfish? It makes you who you truly are, and make your life more pleasant in the way that you can really live with a joy.
Well, I would just say live according to your values because you have a hierarchy of values. Living according to the highest value. There's a difference. Because if you were to take a mother who's 35 years old and has 3 children, and her highest value is raising a beautiful family, if you were to ask her, who are you? You asked her an ontological question, who are you? She'd say, I'm a mother. If you came to me, my highest value is teaching, you'd say, who are you? I'm a teacher. If
Yeah,
you went to a person that was a professional golfer, their highest value was golf, they'd say, I'm a golfer. Our ontological identity revolves around what we value most. So we want to be loved and appreciated for who we are, and who we are is an expression of what we value at the top, the very top value. Aristotle called this top value the telos, the end in mind, the chief aim, Napoleon Hill called it. This is the thing that allows us to be ourselves because we want to be loved and appreciated for that. Our teleological purpose, the thing that we feel that we're on the planet for, the thing that gives us the most meaning is an expression of the highest value. And our epistemological area of expertise, where we excel in knowledge, is always in our highest value. Because information that's coming in through the senses is on its way up from the spinal cord and brainstem up into the cortex. It passes through the filtering mechanism of the thalamus. The pulvinar nuclei acts as a gating and filtering process that filters out anything that's low in value and allows in what's most meaningful. That's why if a mother walks in a mall, her highest value is children, she'll see children's clothes, children's education, children's entertainment, and she'll know exactly what to buy. If her husband's with her, he'll be bored shopping with her because he's focusing on a business or maybe a computer or an iPhone or something else. So we filter our reality according to what we value. And anything that we value most is where we have the most information that we absorb, retain, and imagine using and actually use. So that's why the highest value is the key, not just values, but the highest value.
very powerful
That's our
thing.
identity.
Yeah, that's very powerful thing because we are witnessing that in digital marketing space, so many people are gifting certain stuffs to their clients in order to they pick up identity. Are those hats or shirts with a branded logo or some materials so that they can pick as fast as possible that sort of identity so that they can highly perform in that. But I want to ask you now another question out of context. If we're giving if we are giving advices to certain people, does this mean that we are trying to put them to walk our shoes in the way to reach our values?
If we, this is a very important question, and hopefully I'll do a little diagram here. If we exaggerate who we are with pride and look down on somebody, we will tend to project our values onto them carelessly because we care less about them than ourselves. And if you're doing sales, you're not going to meet their needs. and you're going to get rejected to humble you, to bring you back down to authenticity, because you're up above in a proud, inauthentic state. So anytime you project onto a customer what they need to do, what they should, you'll get humbled eventually,
Yeah.
because you're not caring enough about them. A sustainable, fair exchange. That's non-sustainable. You won't sustain in business. Now, if you minimize yourself and put them on a pedestal, you'll tend to inject their values and try to please them. But now you'll sacrifice your sale and lower your price and sacrifice your profits. So here you won't have a client to get profit. Here you'll sacrifice your profit. And now you'll be walking on eggshells carefully, carelessly, carefully. But if you bring them equal and you realize that your customer is equally as important as you, both of you are equally as important, you will care enough to communicate what you value in the wording that matches their values so they can win and you can win. And that's called caring. Careless, careful, caring. That's what keeps rings on finger too. Caring is the same as selling. So if you really are going to master sales, you have to care about your customer. And that means you need to go and ask questions, because selling is not telling, it's asking. It's asking and establishing. First, you greet and introduce. Then you establish some rapport by finding out common threads between you and them. Then you establish some needs. You confirm needs. Then you offer a service. Don't ever offer a service that hasn't established a need and confirmed a need, because you're going to get a no. And then you're going to want to withdraw from sales because you're going to get a no because they're not meeting their needs. You have to care enough about them and humanity to find out what their needs are and then articulate what truly serves those needs. Because if you try to sell something that doesn't serve the needs, you might get a sale, but you're not going to build a brand.
Yeah.
If you find something that really serves the need, you'll build a relationship, and that will be more valuable than an immediate gratifying sale.
I used to say to many of my clients when we are speaking about sales that you can have the most valuable product in the world, but if they do not see it valuable, you will end up with no sales, simply because you don't know how to articulate on their way those values. And we're coming to this, your diagram of caring and caring ring, which I'm not having at the moment. I hope my wife will not kill me. So I fully agree to that, and I love it so much. But when we're speaking about caring and some sort of balance, I want just slowly to return us back and to ask you, can someone really balance all areas of life? Or is this just a myth and we still balance our highest values and our highest priorities?
You have two ways of ending up in a balance. Either actions, you actually prioritize your life in such a way that you're acting in a formal balance, or perceptually. For instance, I am standing and speaking in front of audiences pretty well every day. So my career is being fulfilled by speaking. My intellectual, my mind and my learning and sharing is being fulfilled daily. My economics, if I do it in a way that serves them and I get remunerated for it, I'm fulfilling my financial objectives. My social objectives, it's also the people I love interacting with, the people that love to learn with me. It's my inspiration because it's my spiritual path. Whatever inspires you is your spiritual path. It may not be religious, or it could be, but it's whatever inspires you is your spiritual path. If you're a football player, that's your spirit. That's what inspires you, getting on that field and playing. And it's also partly family, because in a sense, they're extended members of my family. And I jokingly, see these people as part of my children and part of my colleagues and part of my loved ones and part of my parents. And I'm fulfilling all of those perceptually, even though I may not every day be with my biological children who are grown up now, they're in 40 and late 30s. I may not see them every day, but they're now being manifested in another form, in the form of young people in the seminars. So I'm like a father figure to them, and they're like playing out a child to me. And my children are busy doing their things, and it oscillates around. So you can schedule and try to make a balance out of all your areas of life, which is sort of an idealism. There's no rule saying you have to. I know some people, I knew a gentleman who played piano 13 hours a day since the age of 3, and he's 81 now.
Wow.
13 hours a day plays piano. He's a concert pianist since 9. He's traveled all over the world. He's one of the greatest pianists in the world, but 13 hours a day he plays piano. His way of doing life doesn't match this, 2 hours of this and 2 hours of this kind of thing. His is his family is his audiences, his love. He's similar to myself in the way I do what I love doing. So beware of trying to force yourself into a box according to some formula how it's supposed to look. It's partly you can do that if it means something to you, but it can also be formulated by perceptions. The way I perceive it is nothing's missing in my life. I'm getting everything that I want in the 7 areas of life, doing what I love doing. So I have a balance, regardless of what other people say. See, everybody has a different set of values, and they're going to love you according to their values. And they're going to project their values onto you and try to get you to do what they think would be valuable. But not everybody has the same set of values. So if you sit there and try to please all those people that project their values onto you, you'll end up with chronic fatigue syndrome. So I just say thank you very much for your feedback and opinion, and I'll take it into my collective insights, and I will factor those in. But if you see me in any way not living up to what you're projecting, feel that I'm unworthy of further projection, because I'm going to live according to what's true for me. I'm just going to do it in a way when I'm living by my highest values, I'm more philanthropic. Anytime you fill your day with the highest values, you move into philanthropic. Anytime you do it in lower values, you end up in debauchery. And debauchery is the narcissistic immediate gratification. The highest values lead you to do something that makes a contribution. You love doing it. You want to make a difference. So it's not narcissistic and selfish to live according to your highest values, because you tend to want to go out and do something that makes a difference.
Powerful. You mentioned in one moment a spiritual path, and I want to ask you, do you believe that everybody has a calling or purpose, something we create?
The term calling is a theological term, primarily a Christian term. And, there was in the ancient Jewish, there was a thing called a logos, which was the word of God in their construct. And the Christians kind of took on the logos in the form of Christ as an incarnation of this word of God. And anybody who has the inner voice and vision inside that has this communication with their intuition and inspiration imagine themselves in that state where they're communicating in their calling. They feel like they're being called to do it. So the highest value is what would be called the calling, because that's where we're most authentic and objective, and that's when we're not trying to change others into us or change ourselves into others. And when we're not trying to fix anything on the outside, we're grateful for what is, and our human will and what we want matches what is. We could call that divine will, or the way the world really is. And so that's the most profound state. So yes, we do have a calling. That calling is what it is that we feel that's most inspiring and meaningful to our lives. And that's unique to each individual. It's not something that everybody has in the sense of one for everybody. It's unique to everybody. It's a fingerprint specific thing that they are here to do. And their voids in life, all the judgments that they've made in their life that make them feel empty, are what's creating the void, which drives the value to fulfillment. In the ancient 2nd century Gnostic writings, there was a thing called konoma and pleroma. Konoma was the feeling of emptiness from judgment and being too proud or too humble to admit what we see in others inside us. And pleroma was fulfillment and fullness and the bouquet of life, when we feel like we're doing what we love and with the people that we love. And I believe that if we follow what's really highest in priority, we have more fulfillment. I've been doing it for almost 7 years, helping people with that. And the people that live congruent like that, they flourish. And the people who try not to, they perish.
Powerful. And you're often speaking about this way of humans' behavior and how we psychologically work from practically inside out. And in sales particularly, one of the hardest things is maybe to emotionally open up your prospect, to they articulate their pain And maybe most important, not just to articulate, but to they say to themselves that they're in the problem. Now I want to tweak that situation and to ask you, kind of like, if we speak about relationships, emotions, how does unleashed emotional pain show up in our career, relationships, or finances?
Most of us have unconscious motives, and we're trying to escape with our amygdala our pains that we had in our past. Let's say that you met, and I'm just going to give you an example. Every human being, regardless of age, gender, or culture, has, consciously or unconsciously, a search image that they're looking for in a mate. And if you look carefully, and I've been blessed to do this for a long time, of looking at what they have on their tick box, what do they think they're looking for? It's an avoidance of things they've been pained over. So if let's say that they went out with 3 girls that had brown hair, and that ended up being dramatic and very traumatic in their minds. They saw more drawbacks than benefits, and so they labeled it traumatic. Well, they might go, you know what? I don't trust brown-haired girls. I think I'm looking for a blonde now. And so they're not necessarily conscious this is happening. They have unconscious motives to avoid pain and seek pleasure with their amygdala. The amygdala assigns valency to experiences, and we try to avoid a predator and seek a prey, and try to avoid pain and seek a pleasure. Because we get eaten by a predator, it's painful. We get to eat, it's pleasureful. So our amygdala is constantly assigning valency and judging things. And whenever we judge something, it leaves us either too proud or too humble to admit what we see in others inside us. So these voids lead us, consciously or unconsciously, to what we're searching for. And most of us are not aware. I'd have to say, after doing the value determination on hundreds of thousands of people, most people are not aware of what's driving them. I had a gentleman, let me give you an example. I had a gentleman that earlier this year, he said, I've got a business that's around $3 million. It grosses $3 million, small business. And he said, and I'd like to bring it to 10. But no matter what I do, my business has been plateaued for the last 3 years. And so he says, can you help me? I would like to consult with you. I said, sure. So I asked him a simple question. What are you afraid is going to happen if all of a sudden you go to 10 million? He said, well, that would be great. I said, I know, but that didn't answer my question. What are you afraid is going to happen if all of a sudden you went to 10 million? And he paused, and he dodged it for a few minutes. Of course, I held him accountable. Answer the question. What are you afraid? Because every human being makes a decision based on what they think is going to be more advantageous than disadvantageous. That's what the amygdala does. So if you're not doing what you say you want to do, you have unconscious things that are pains sitting there making sure you don't. Or otherwise you do it. So I asked him, what are you afraid is going to happen? And he said, finally, he says, I'm afraid I'll end up in a divorce. I said, okay. So what you're saying is that right now you're working as efficiently as you can with your knowledge, but I have 2 buddies, he said, that both scaled up their business. And when they did, they got so focused and so much energy into the business, they didn't have time for their family, and the wife's divorced them and cut their business in half and their income in half, their economics in half. And he says, I don't want that to happen. So in the back of my mind, unconsciously, if I grow my business, that could happen. So he's got an unconscious motive not to have that happen. So I asked him a simple question. How could growing your business to $10 million help your wife? I don't know. I can't imagine it right now. If I was to do it, it would take more energy and focus and everything else. And she's already on my case right now and saying I'm not speaking kids enough. I'm not around enough. I'm not taking time for her. So I don't know. I said, well, because you don't have a strategy to get to 10 million without undermining your marriage, you're not going to do it because you're going to make sure you don't. You've been doing that. I said, so how could growing your business help your wife? He said, we finally worked together, and he said, if I did grow my income, I could set up an education system, a specific education for each of the children. Would your wife want that? Yeah, that's in her values. So she's not going to resist you doing something that's going to fulfill her values. She's going to resist something that's interfering with her values. What else you do? We could schedule at least 2 vacations a year and I could have time with her and hire somebody to help us with the kids or the grandparents to help with the kids. I said, okay, if you did that, is she going to be upset about it? Because if you communicated, says, I'd like to grow the business, and because I want to make sure that we have an education fund for the kids, and I want us to be able to have 2 vacations a year together for ourselves. If you talk in terms of her values, she's not going to resist you. And he said, and if I prioritize what I'm doing and delegate more, I have more time and can get other people and extract surplus labor value out of them and delegate it more. I could go to the next level. But right now you're afraid to delegate some things and you're doing it all and you're overwhelmed. And she's catching it and associating pain with you working. And you're coming home and you're preoccupied with that because of all the stresses and you're not giving her attention. So if she doesn't see how she's going to win out of you going to 10 million, she's going to resist you. But if we stack up how specific is going to 10 million going to help your wife, help your kids, help you have time, help you have a future with her, she's going to support you all because she's getting what she wants. Because now you're helping her get what she wants so you can get what you want. So once I did that, he came up with creative ideas, how to communicate it, and he presented it to his wife. 3 months later, his business poofed because he didn't have the mental block inside.
Yeah.
And so people have many mental blocks that are unconscious motives that they think they don't have, but when you ask them the right question, it becomes unconscious becomes conscious and they realize what they're doing. Some people call them limiting beliefs and all this other stuff. But really what it is, it's not even a limiting belief. It's 2 values that haven't been linked and associated. If you then find out how is spending time with your wife helping you grow your business to 10 million and answer that question 50 times, then you won't see it interfering and you'll send the way. See, the quality of our life is based on the quality of the questions we ask. And if we ask quality questions, how specifically is what I want helping them get what they want? And how is it what they want helping me get what I want? You end up increasing your communication skill, your love and respect for each other. Those don't interfere with the outcome.
It's basically like equilibrium where you're trying to improve your life, coming to that example of 10 million, but in the same way you have to project that on your partner and how to her life suddenly become as well better as you are, not in the way to she follow you and to fall for your values and for your obligations and stuff, but to increase also her values and to put them on the higher level.
Let me share, if you don't mind, I'd like to share one more story.
Oh, please.
Jeff Bezos, when he was creating Amazon, he was influenced by the founder of Sony. And he realized how important it was to have a cause and to be customer-centric. They focus on really meeting the customer's needs. Well, he did. He created Amazon, one of the greatest customer-centric companies. But then he realized that now he's got the customers. You know, he's taken over a lot of companies, almost like a monopoly, taken over the country, because he's really given them a greater advantage over disadvantage compared to anybody else. But then what happened was his own employees started to say, hey, we're working longer hours. We're not getting paid that well. So they eventually created a revolt and got a Teamsters union to go against him. And then what it did, it forced him to redistribute some of the funds from the profits to go back to the people and to give them reasonable hours so they're getting more fair exchange. Stacey Adams called it equity theory. There's now an equity between the owner and the employees. Now the owner and the customer. So customers are now getting win-win. Now the employees are. When you do, his business went up. He didn't lose business. When he gave more to them, he didn't lose business. Then he realized the stockholders said, well, wait a minute now. Our stock returns are a little bit less. And the dividends are a little bit less. So then he realized if I bring down mine and give a little bit back to the customer, to the stockholder, now my overall business goes up because more people now want stock.
Yeah.
So what he did is it was a journey of learning how to meet all of the people who are involved in the business. And that may be the government, because right now you got monopolies in some companies if they don't learn how to do it in fair exchange with the government and to the other country, the other companies in the country. So you're constantly having to look at who is involved in the company and trying to have a sustainable, fair exchange by making sure that both people's values are equally fulfilled. The master of business is doing that. And every symptom in the business is trying to teach that to the owner. Every symptom in the business is a feedback for that objective: authenticity and equanimity and sustainable fair exchange.
I haven't heard for that story never before, but it's a powerful one because it's exactly showing the principle how by giving more you can actually grow your company and your business. The next question which I have here for you is something what you very often speak, and it's still coming to that equilibrium story. Just this time it's understanding emotional equilibrium. You often talk about dissolving resentment and infatuation. So, can you please explain us a little bit better these two emotions and why so dangerous if we left them unchecked on our list of values and emotions?
Anything that we infatuate with will occupy space and time and mind and run us. Just try to sleep at night when you're highly infatuated. You'll have intrusive thoughts. Anything that you resent, highly resent, will occupy space and time and mind and run you. You'll have intrusive thoughts. Just try to sleep when you're really resentful. Insomnia is a feedback mechanism to let you know you have imbalanced thoughts. Because when you're infatuated, you're conscious of the upsides and unconscious of the downsides. When you're resentful, you're conscious of the downsides and unconscious of the upsides. When you're infatuated, you minimize yourself and you're too humble to admit what you see in them inside yourself. When you're resentful, you're too proud to admit what you see in them inside you. So you have an imbalanced state. You're not in equanimity or equilibrium with the person. And so you're creating symptoms. Now, this unconscious, the quality of your life is based on the quality of the questions you ask. And the questions you ask, the greatest questions are the ones that make you conscious of what you're unconscious of. So if you're infatuated with somebody, it's wise to ask the question, what are the downsides of this person? Because you're blind. I mean, anybody who's been infatuated with a girl over a period of time or a guy, what do they find out? Days, weeks, months, years that it's not what they thought. They were fooled. They were gullible. And if they've met somebody that they resented, days, weeks, months, years, they find out that there was some great opportunity that came out of it. And then they realize that they had the wisdom of the ages with the aging process instead of the wisdom of the ages without it, by asking quality questions and balancing their perception. Because when you balance your perception, you get to love people. When you have an imbalanced ratio of perception, you judge people. And judgment leaves you feeling empty and void, and it makes you exaggerate or minimize yourself and project or inject, and it creates futility instead of utility.
Wow, you are giving us today such a valuable lessons, and I'm so thankful for this. And I want slowly to move towards business conversation, and here is why. We usually say in my sphere of operating sales that you have to be detached from the sale, emotionally detached from the outcome. That's probably the best way to you keep yourself on some certain level of transmitting the energy and everything else. How do you personally regulate your emotions in difficult moments?
I can't say I always regulate them. Sometimes I react like a wild animal.
Like probably all of us.
Yeah. The impression that I've somehow figured it out and I don't have emotional reactions and things like that, because that's not true. I had one last night. But I've learned that identify what that emotional reaction is. Sometimes I learn from hindsight what it was, and then I go and ask new questions and balance my perception and liberate it and free it up. So I manage it by asking questions that balance out my perception, because every emotional response is an imbalanced ratio of perceptions. It's more positive than negative, more negative than positive. So I just go and ask the question that balances out the equation, and then I'm liberated from the emotional vicissitudes and volatilities. But I sometimes react. I can't say it's every day, but I certainly have reactions on occasion. So I'm grateful for them because it lets me know what I haven't loved and gives me another opportunity to grow.
Yeah, that's very powerful because on one of the recent episode I did with Peggy McCall, she mentioned that it's very important for you to understand and to be grateful for being able to see that zoomed out from the situation, to being able to say like, okay, God, thank you for letting me know that this bothers me. Let me see now how can I deal with that. And you're saying the same thing, just in different contexts. It's very powerful.
Yes.
During the
Yeah,
research,
we're human. We have an amygdala subcortical nuclei, the amygdala, that allows us to have emotional reactions when we're in survival mode, and we have the executive center to have self-governance when we're in thrival mode. And most of us, I'd say, live in a nice, stable zone most of the time. But occasionally we get these volatilities when we perceive things. Anytime we fear the loss of something we seek, or anytime we fear the gain of something we don't want, we get reactive. That's normal.
yeah, but doing some research, I found out that you have been worked also with people who are 9, even 10 figures, like billionaires. And I want to ask you now, looking at the business side, what are some internal traits they all seem to share? How they kind of fit in this, that you can say like, okay, they are different?
Well, I found 6 things common to all the billionaires that I've done. I've met about 130 of them. So I would say they feel it's almost like by divine providence and human sovereignty, they feel called to serve vast numbers of people. They feel
Wow.
called to serve vast numbers of people. Then they focus on managing the business effectively or efficiently, directly or indirectly, by hiring people or doing it themselves, where they maximize profits. The maximizing profits allows the customer to get a lower price and the employee to get a better salary. Then they go in and they save a progressive portion of that profit and build up a cash reserve to stabilize the business. So it's got massive cash reserves. The top Fortune 100 companies all have bigger cash reserves than most companies. Then they invest in ancillary companies and continue to invest in the economy to give other opportunities to other individuals. And they invest in things that might assist them also. So they win and the other person wins. Then they accumulate their fortune by having some cause that gives them a reason for doing it. The greater the cause, the greater the wealth potential. And that leaves some sort of legacy that they want to do beyond their life. So I know for myself, I grew wealth. I'm sure I would have plateaued at a certain level of wealth if I didn't have a greater cause, something that I wanted to do, some philanthropic objective. And as long as you have some bigger reason for doing it, you'll keep growing wealth and you'll redirect it. And the more you master your money and manage your money and invest it, the less taxes you have. The world is set up to reward people that manage money wisely. When you manage money wisely, you get more money to manage and you get less taxes. And that's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's not like you're avoiding taxes. You get the rewards of long-term capital gains if you're patient and invest in quality companies. And that lowers your overall tax rate. And people who don't do that and they go for immediate gratification and they just keep buying things that are consumers that go down in value, they never get ahead and they pay the most taxes and they make it hard on themselves.
Absolutely.
So there are certain behaviors that wealthy people have followed. And I've just been cataloging them for a long time. And those are just 6 of them that are common.
Those are very powerful. And I want to ask you, do they have still some inner blocks towards wealth or abundance? And have you ever discovered something what's very interesting in them, that even though they're billionaires, they still have something what low and small businesses have, business owners?
Yes. I you add another zero doesn't mean you're really not having different issues in your life. Because I know of one gentleman that sold one of his companies for $1.5 billion, and he had a religious block in himself. So most of it he gave away philanthropically because he felt that it was unfair that he had all this wealth. But he just happened to hit across something that was very, very important in AI that made him a fortune, but he felt guilty taking it. And I had an opportunity to chat with him and help him receive that and realize his contribution so he didn't have the guilt. But he was raised in a religious ideology, you might say, that made him feel guilty having money. And
Wow.
what's interesting is the people that were promoting the ideology that you should feel guilty about having money are the ones that have the most wealth.
Yeah.
It's kind of a paradox.
kind of a paradox. Speaking about this and touching this point, I want to ask you, what's your philosophy of building wealth beyond the mechanics? Let's speak about spiritual side of this or emotional.
Well, I have to make this probably the last question because I'm about to go on to a movie filming now. But I'll say that many people have this illusion that material and spiritual are separated, and that's not so. The highest level of spirituality you have is being authentic to yourself, where you're inspired and spontaneously acting in a philanthropic way, making a difference. So money is simply a measurement of sustainable fair exchange. And when you try to get something for nothing or give something for nothing, you get feedback and you get maximum futility. But when you have a sustainable fair exchange, you get maximum utility. And you're inspired and grateful and loving and enthused, and you're more certain and you're more present, and which is a spiritual state. So spiritual and materiality are not separate. Hubert Howe Bancroft, in his book, The Book of Wealth, outlined this, which is one of the greatest books ever written on that. He outlined this, that there were three things common to the great spiritual and great wealthiest people in the history, that they felt called to do a great service in the world. They felt that they were there to raise the standards of society and people, and they felt that they had transcended the illusions of good and evil associated with money. As long as you think it's good and you're infatuated with it or resent it because you think it's bad, you won't manage it wisely. It will run you. If you want to run it, you have to transcend it and love money, not infatuate with it, but love it. Loving it means that you can embrace the pains and pleasures in the pursuit of doing something that's philanthropic, that serves, that makes the income.
Powerful. Knowing that you're very busy and that we are slightly above the time we agreed to record that, I want to ask you the last question only. What would be your message for everybody who is listening us and trying to level up their business into 8, 9, or even 10 figures?
If you don't fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, it's going to fill up with low priority distractions that don't. So make a list of everything you ever do in a day, an honest, very thorough, detailed list of every detail of what you do. Take an honest, introspective, reflective look at it. Ask yourself, what is the highest productive, most income generating to the least, and prioritize that list according to what produces the most per minute and per hour and what doesn't. And be honest. Then go and ask and rate it on that same list on a 1 to 10 scale on meaning. What is the most inspiring that you can't wait to get up and do, and what is the least inspiring that you don't want to do? You live by design or duty, in other words. Then next to that, write down how much does it cost to hire somebody to do those actions, and find out all the costs, not just the salaries, but everything, the nickel and dimes of all the space usage, the insurance, etc. How much does it cost to hire somebody to do that? And then look at the spread between what it produces per hour and what it would cost to hire somebody per hour. And then put that in a priority and prioritize these lists. And then look at how much time each of these jobs are needed, and then prioritize the final list. If you do, and then if you stick to the very highest priority things that have the most, that allows you to extract the most surplus labor value by delegating everything else, you're going to scale up your business. It's not that difficult. It's not rocket science. But you won't be able to make it to the top unless you dedicate to what's highest in value and delegate what's lowest. Otherwise, you'll hold yourself back doing low priority things that devalue, and when you devalue, so does the.
That's awesome. John, I really want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for these invaluable lessons. And this was one of the best podcast episodes I did so far. And I'm really thankful for this. For all of you guys who are listening or watching to this podcast, in the descriptional area below, I will put you some very good links where you can get in touch with Dr. John Demartini, where you can consume some of his stuffs, go through that blueprint of values, and find yourself in the better place so that you can elevate your life and your business. John, I'm sincerely thanking you for coming to this episode and to this show and sparing the time of your busy schedule. And I hope that we will speak sometime more in the future.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Anytime. I really appreciate the questions. Whoever's listening out there, thank you for taking the time out of your schedule and listening and supporting this lovely podcast. And just know that don't try to be second at being somebody else, be first at being you. The magnificence of who you are is far greater than any fantasies you'll impose on yourself.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. See you in the next episode. Bye.